Alexa Curtis turned personal struggles into a mission. Starting with a fashion blog at the age of 12, she evolved it into Life Unfiltered, a vital resource for teens. She then hosted Radio Disney's Fearless Every Day, and in 2024 launched Chief Swag Officer, a leading media accessory brand. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Live the Glamour. I am here today with Alexa Curtis, and I have so much to talk to you about because there's so many different things. I love your whole story. I know it, but I'm gonna jump right into it because I feel like I want you to tell the audience a little bit about it. Let's go all the way back to when you were 12, maybe back further, but let's go back to when you were 12, and you started a fashion blog.
Yes, yes. I started a fashion blog back in 2011 when I was 12 years old. It was called A Life in the Fashion Lane. And I started it because when I was 7, my father was wrongfully convicted and put in maximum security prison in Rhode Island. And the year that he got out, I started this fashion blog. And so, though I no longer operate like fully the fashion blog, that was really the catalyst for my whole career as an entrepreneur.
That's unbelievable. I love how things could lead into that. I think it's so interesting to see someone's path and like where it starts and to do it so young, to have that inspiration at such a young age. It just carries through. It can't help but carry through, I think. And as a serial entrepreneur, you've then gone into a bunch of other ventures. That blog led into is it Life Unfiltered? Is this?
Yeah, no, I know it's confusing. So I had the blog. It was called A Life in the Fashion Lane. And then after about like 5 years of cold pitching and getting some partnerships, this is before also influencing was a thing.
Yeah.
I was just like, there was this group of OG young adult bloggers, and we loved to write. I really did quite poorly in school. So for me, writing was really my outlet. And so I ended up switching the blog to be more about entrepreneurship when I was about 18.
Hmm.
Decided not to go to college because I didn't have any money, but I started to do a lot of social media gigs on the side for companies, like right when Hootsuite and for example had launched, where you would schedule posts. Yeah. And so that was really those side things were fueling my, at the time, like still very much starving artist lifestyle, but to continue building this blog. And then I changed it to be a lot more about entrepreneurship, which is where the Life Unfiltered with Alexa came from. And then ended up launching my podcast and then another company called Be Fearless. So it was all under really the umbrella of helping young people get out of their comfort zone and follow their dreams and be fearless.
I feel like that's a really big challenge, especially now with so much going on for young people to figure out their way and, know what they want and they don't want and not feel like I think social media is great, but it also takes some of that away. And the confidence away. And I know some of it was around mental health, and maybe it does tie into the Disney. I know you did a podcast a podcast, was it for Disney?
Yeah, I had a podcast called Fearless Every Day with Radio Disney.
How did you get that? How did that get started?
It was literally, I actually just put a podcast episode out today about that. So I was just editing those videos. That was crazy. So at the time I was living in Boston, I had done a bunch of TV segments, which was another kind of loophole I had found was I was doing some social media work for a woman and she would basically get paid under the radar to go on TV. I feel like you would know about this. Like that's
I
kind of like, yeah, I
Go.
feel like because I know your work and whatnot.
Yes.
So it's just like behind the scenes thing that's like illegal, but you do it anyhow. So we had found this loophole. And so I had been like, all right, when I was 18, I was like, I'm so broke. How do I make money? So I was essentially cold pitching these segments, would get on, bring in brands. And so I found this producer list online. It had about 466 emails on it. And I sent out a BCC email. And a few days later, I was in Boston. I remember where I was, and I got a reply from the head of Disney's assistant who basically said, he's the VP at the time, has seen your email and has looked, up a little bit about you and would like to set a meeting. When are you available? And it went from there.
That's unbelievable. I feel like just from seeing some of your work, I think, and I've, watched on Instagram and stuff, and how you do the cold calling and things like that. Honestly, and for my industry and your industry, I think that, or most industries, that's what it really does take. But that ties so much into the fearless side of things because it is so hard.
So hard.
It's so hard to do. And, I don't know, maybe you have some advice on how to get over that and no matter what direction you're looking to go. And I think it does matter to be able to reach out to some people that you would never necessarily think of
Yeah.
that opportunity might be right there. What type of advice would you give someone to doing that, to getting getting out of your comfort zone?
That's a great question. Probably have two pieces of advice for that. I think number one is it's a numbers game. So a lot of people I find will send like one email and then they're sitting there like, what if this person does or doesn't reply? 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get a reply unless you do like a form of harassment with follow-up, which I do. A lot of times I don't even get the reply. So instead of emailing one person, you need to email like 30 people because statistically, 1 out of 30 people is going to reply to your email, right? And so the more people that you email as a volume at once, the less you'll feel like, oh my gosh, Alexa didn't reply to me, but she was the one person I emailed that day, right?
Mm.
So I think it's number one that, and the second part of overcoming the fear of not hearing back or rejection, especially with the cold emailing, is I think because I've done it for so long, is really reframing and rewiring your brain to think like, if I don't write this email, there's a possibility I won't know what will come next. Instead of thinking, if I write this email and they don't reply, well, then I'm a loser and I suck. So you
Yeah.
need to think of it like, if I don't write this email, there's a possibility that I could get a TV show or I could get a job or I could get a mentor out of it. Instead of thinking like, if I write it and they don't reply, well, then I suck. So
Oh,
you have to rewire your brain to think like, by not reaching out, you limit your ability to do something that you want to do with your life.
oh, that is so great. That is honestly, I haven't heard that type of advice, like to think of it that way. And I
Yeah.
love it because it does, like, it's really about reframing. Even for me, saying that, I'm like, oh my God, that's such a good way to think about it. Because we do instinctively think to ourselves, like, oh, they're not going to reply. They're going to
Yeah.
wonder why I'm doing this. Who is she to reach out? All those negative thoughts that go on. That
Yeah.
leads really into some of the brand outreach that I think is really interesting. Some of the brands that you've worked with and collaborated with are big ones like T-Mobile and how would you say it's the same way that you secured them? What gave you the confidence to do it? What type of jobs were they?
Oh God. Yeah. I think I'm trying to think actually. T-Mobile may have been one of the larger ones that had reached
Hmm.
out to me. Also it was a while ago. A strong
Right,
possibility
right.
I had also cold emailed them at the time. I don't know if they still are. They were represented by an agency called like PMK BNC.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I ended up getting on their like list of influencers who basically they like paid and gave
Mhm.
product to and iPhones, et cetera, to promote. It's really funny because for an entire like 2, 3 year period, T-Mobile like paid my phone bill, gave me a new iPhone. Never once did they email me and ask me to post.
Oh,
Never once. It was the weirdest brand deal I've ever gotten
that
because
is
they never
crazy.
I
Yeah,
know, but I think they're such a large company and the PR firm is so big that they were like, we just assume people are
yeah,
doing the posts.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that one I was sponsored by British Airways for a while, and that was from a cold pitch. I had cold pitched the head of PR when I was quite young. So it's like a good mix between both.
Would you say you call more or email? So do you use social media? Like what type of platforms do you use for doing stuff like that?
I don't DM brands, and I
Mm.
know a lot of content creators do. I personally don't. I don't know why that is. I just don't do that. But I'll always like have someone write an email for me, or I'll email them. And then if I don't hear back, I will call.
Mm.
For example, if I cold pitch someone and get like an out of office email, this happened last week. I like took the emails she put in the sorry, I'm not available. Please reach out to, and I emailed them and I said like, hi, I think the woman's name was like Corey or something. And I was like, hi, whatever her name was, like Corey suggested I reach out. And I know that that's like not necessarily true because this woman didn't say it, but she technically did in
Right.
her out of
Yeah,
office email.
yeah, yeah.
And I think like, then you have this common bond of like, oh, she doesn't care whether it was an out of office email or like she knows this woman, Corey, I'm going to reply. So I really follow that lead a lot with my cold pitching and my follow-up strategy.
That's great. That is like such a good way to
Yeah.
like circumvent it. I feel like I go around.
Always.
I think the call, and it's funny because like years ago, calling was a big thing, like pitch calling was a
Yeah.
big thing. And I feel like now it's gotten less. And seeing how you do it,
Yeah.
maybe it is a good route to take because so many people don't do that anymore. So it's kind of like
It's
kind of
great.
getting in there.
Yeah. If I can find a number, I'll call. I think it depends on
Wow.
how badly too I want something. Like I'm dying right now to do something with Wegmans. And I called the woman last week and she said to email. So probably when I get to LA, maybe on Friday now, because I'm talking about it, I'm going to remember it. I'll
Yeah.
probably call her back and be like, hey, like Laura didn't reply to the email. Can you direct me in the right place? So I do a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of confidence, I feel like, to be able to not let that one time. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to too, they'll say, like, I did it one time, I already reached out. But that one time is nothing, really.
Yeah.
Like you have to do it multiple times and feel
Yeah.
like it's okay that you reached out and that you're following up. The follow-up,
Yeah.
I feel like, is probably the bigger part of it out of anything
So much.
that goes missing. What would you
100%.
say, like, part of this was, do you have your own fears that you worked through to overcome to get to this place in your life?
With the cold emailing and
Just
like,
with that and with just again, what like maybe fears did you work on yourself to get to this part where you're now confident enough to do the things like that, to start your own business? Did you have fears or was it things that just pushed you, like what you went through with your father? Was it more that pushed you, or did you say you had like certain fears that you had to work through?
oh, fears is the right word. I would say I've always been really innately an entrepreneur. I think it's more when things have gone really bad or when I've really
Mhm.
had no money or when I've been really broke or the rejection, etc. Like when I left Disney because they didn't re-sign a contract. I think it's my ability to bounce back from that because just there's this inner confidence. And I mean, that's why they say entrepreneurs have to be delusional. There's this confidence I have, not necessarily, I like, I won't sit here and be like, I'm the most confident person because I don't think that's true.
Feels like you are. I feel like you
And
feel
perhaps like when I really sit down with myself, I mean, I have like such anxiety all the time because I never know what's going to work out. But the thing is, I'm not someone who also lives by like I've never been someone who like knows my 5-year plan.
Hmm.
I'm like I just can see when I close my eyes like the house I would like to live in and the car I
Yeah.
would like to have and like the house I would be able to buy my parents and just know that at some point I'm gonna get there. But if I give up or if I left Disney and like just stopped because they didn't re-sign my show, I may never get there.
Got
And I
it.
think that drive along with like the young people that I talk to and whoever feel inspired by anything I post, it's 50-50 that's allows me to get through it. So it's not fear, it's more just this like obsession with if I don't become successful because I gave up on myself,
Hmm.
what would that mean?
Hmm. I like that. I like that thought, that thinking. That kind of leads perfectly into the business that you started, I'd say a year ago.
Okay.
Um,
You're
I know
very good.
I know it's around the mic, like the
Yeah.
customized is, I don't know if I'm saying the
Yes.
right thing.
No, you're
Um,
right.
then has it gone into more, I mean now more swag type of items, or is it just that, would you say? Tell us a little
And
bit
I
about
realize now, yeah, I should have a cover on me every time I'm on camera, and I have not, but I'm like I have the
No, I
sweater.
see.
So
Yeah, you just
yeah. Well, yeah. So our niche is customized microphone covers, but we've rolled out and have continued to launch a variety of other items for media professionals, for corporations. But that particular company like stems around these customizable products for again like creators or corporations, etc. And I started that in August of 2024.
and you felt like there was something missing because of this. It's funny because it seems like such a, and you probably had the same thought, like, oh, mics, everybody's been using them for years, like, and then you created this customizable mic that blew up and everyone needs one. And after seeing it, I'm like, it makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
It's a really interesting. No, you're so right. And it's a really the questions you're asking about entrepreneurship are so good and not necessarily something that I always am asked about. So I appreciate how you're like guiding this conversation. But I had prior to this chief swag officer, I had a terrible year in business. I lost thousands of dollars. Like I almost had to move home. I was sued by someone for another company that I had. And I was at like my breaking point. Like I started looking for jobs. I had never done that. I don't even have a resume. And every week with my therapist, as I went through this like motion of like, what the fuck am I gonna do? People also think that like influencers and content creators make millions of dollars. I've had months where I make thousands and I've had months where I make zero and I'm living off
Funny.
of that
Right,
5,000 I made in January.
right.
And it got really bad. It got really bad. I won't lie. And I had this weird inclination. I always like, I had had this idea for quite a while because I had noticed that I was using this product and it was like irritating me that I was having this branded ugly label by this company called Rode. And so immediately then, and I had at the time, I had it and I was like very depressed and really struggling in business. But every week I would kind of say to my therapist, like, I really feel like there's something about this and this is my last shot. And she would always say to me, like, look, what type of entrepreneur are you if you're like, this is your last chance? And I'm like, Yeah, but like I feel like I am too fucking tired and I'm 27 and like I'm not rich and why is this happening to me? And I finally, after like 6 months of trying to figure out how to print this type of material, and I kind of figured it out. I
Mm.
went to my sister and ended up launching an Etsy shop that particular night. And like when I am telling you, like I was at the brink of either like committing suicide or just like I was just done. And like I
Yeah.
really struggled with my mental health. And I flew back to London and turned off my phone. And when I turned my phone off of airplane mode, and I had never launched an Etsy shop, like
Mm.
I told like 4 people because I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
But like, if I don't do it, I'm so annoyed that I haven't tried it. I just need to like try it. And if it
Yeah.
fails, no problem. And when I turned my phone off of airplane mode, I was like standing on the platform to go back to my place in London. And I got, the same cha-ching that you get from Venmo.
Yes. Yeah.
I was looking at it coming in and like I never said I was the founder of it, like nothing to do with me, etc. And I just remember like it makes me like cry now thinking about it because I just like broke down. I called my mom and I was like, I think I'm on to something here. And then from there I figured out like, okay, how do I scale an e-commerce business? What is this going to become? I built a website for it, etc. But it's just wild to look back and think like I was on the brink of being like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, you have to follow your gut intuition. I know that was a long-winded
No,
story
no,
of how
that was so good. And I think sometimes that's when it like our breaking points are the times that the most things happen. It's just being able to push through that, which is so hard. And a big
so
reason why I do this show is because I love showing entrepreneurs and people building businesses and hearing the real stories. So I think everyone really they see this outside image and like social media is great for that, but they don't know what you have to actually do to get through it, and that it may take two or three businesses or tries or different things. I mean, I've been through so many different places in my life and things that I've done, and then when you start to tell your journey, people are like, wait, you did this, you did that.
exactly.
It's 15 years later and this is
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it took that long. Things don't
Yeah.
just, like all happen. It seems
No.
and
Well,
it's what
yeah, you're
it
so right.
it leads you into these things. I mean, you maybe would have never led to this if you weren't had all the other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, I really do think that if you can push through it, it's what gets you to that next level. What would you say your day is typically like? Like, take us through what a typical day would be for you, having these businesses and you're at South by Southwest, which is amazing right now. So that's probably a unique day in itself.
Yeah, to be honest, I really came for these parties. And like another thing is like the face to face. In the past like
Yes.
24 hours, I have been able to literally, when I went to 4 different parties, I don't have a badge or anything.
Oh,
And I
wow.
should like my friend just gave me a badge, but I don't even have time to go. So I went to go to these particular
That's
parties. One
so
of them at
amazing.
Nugget
I love
too.
it.
That was phenomenal. And I wanted to meet specific people. I wanted to meet the Spotify team. I wanted to meet Scott Galloway's team. And every single person I met, I have now been able to facilitate getting them microphone covers for their show, like new orders. And that was literally why I came. So I mean, I would say the most consistent part of my day is like I always wake up and I always don't go on my phone for the first hour. I meditate for like 20 minutes and I
Wow.
read for probably 10 or 15. And then lately with Chief Swag, which is pretty much what I'm doing all day, every day, I'm hiring people right now. So it's been a lot of training them, like content. I have a podcast. So today there's an episode that came out. So dealing with that. The biggest thing is like customer service for the e-commerce business. So
Mm,
I've been with this training just kind of
that's awesome.
on yeah, like a little bit too involved right now, and I probably should not be so involved, but I'm like so scared things are going to go wrong.
Mm,
Uh, so it's mostly like handling customers right now and orders and just building and scaling the business.
wow. Do you feel like in the next, like, what direction do you feel like it'll go in the next year or so? I know it's hard to look at that from this point, but do you have a direction that you'd like to see it go in?
Do you mean Chief Swag Officer?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, I do. We're on track to be the next like largest company for media professionals and creators. And the crazy thing is like
Uh-huh.
none of this has been from going viral. Like I only just started the Instagram. Like there's not that many
Yeah.
followers. But like behind the scenes, the orders we're doing for like corporations, et cetera, have just been really incredible and like really quite large. So that and the customizable space is great, but there's also a lot of problems with customizing products. So that's why on the website you'll see that like we've launched other items. Like one of our best sellers is like those sticky grips that you put up, to hold your phone. And but I go back to the customizable space. For me, I started it because I wanted to be able to put my name on something instead of give exposure to this multi-million dollar brand
Great.
called Rode. And so I still want, that to be the main focus is people being aware that you can spend 5 grand on like a personal branding coach, or you can essentially make your own content and do it like how I did. And
Yeah.
that's how I became successful, was just from trying.
I think that's amazing. It's so
Yeah.
amazing to hear it
Thanks.
and
Thanks.
see where it's going. I just want to talk a little bit about the podcast too, because I think that's interesting and another side of it.
Yeah.
What type of people do you talk to on your podcast? Is it similar to the Disney one, or did you take it away from that?
No, it's quite different. So the Disney one was really geared a lot younger. It was like a good mix of like young talent I was interviewing or Disney stars. This is pretty much serial and or exited founders.
Oh, wow.
So the core focus is mostly for people who are interested in entrepreneurship or want to do something, a bit more non-traditional with their lives. And I interview guests with the intention that someone listening walks away being able to either know or feel confident enough to start a business. Like
Wow.
you said also earlier in this episode, I really like to hit on topics that a lot of people don't like to talk about, which is why I openly say, like, I got through a lawsuit, I got through being canceled, because it frustrates me that people look at, someone and think like, oh, that person got viral, that's going to be me. And
Yeah.
like, that's just not how this goes.
No, not at
And
all.
so I focus on founders who are like able to as authentically talk about the highs and lows as I feel confident doing.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm every that information will be in the description for anyone
Yay.
from that. Um, I would say I mean, this conversation has been amazing. I love hearing this. I like all the, the bits and things that people where you come from and how you've gotten, on the road to success. I feel like it's just incredible. Um, and where can everyone find you? Like, where can we find you on?
Yes. And Dawn, I would also love to send you some cheap swag, like a sweater,
Oh,
microphone
well.
covers,
Thank
whatever. So I'll get your address after this.
thank you.
But I'm on Instagram, which is Alexa_Curtis, and TikTok, which is Alexa Curtis Unfiltered. And then the company website is called chiefswagofficer.com.
Awesome. So if anybody's looking to do that, they can find all your customizable items. It's so great talking to you. This was really amazing. And I look forward to seeing where you go with it.
Thank you so much for having me
So
on.
much. Yeah, Alexa, have a good one.
You
Bye.
too.